So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our viewers from across the globe. My name is Zeenat Reza Khan. I'm heading the Outreach Working Group at European Network for Academic Integrity. I have the absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the very first Around the Globe in 30 Vodcast being launched this session. As a community of passionate researchers, academics, and professionals, we are an amazing collective point of expertise and resources that we can use to support the greater community of educators and students in the world. The motivation behind forming this working group was to develop a support system through outreach activities targeting individuals, institutions, and students beyond the Western world. As part of these efforts, we are launching this podcast series to bring to the forefront the extraordinary efforts and research being done in and around academic integrity from regions such as Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. The aim of the podcast is to create an ENAI Human Library. The Human Library is a concept that was originated in Denmark in 2000 and basically means a library of humans as stories unbiased and unjudged. So our nominees agreed to become part of the library as books who can be borrowed once a year, perhaps to collaborate on a project or give a guest talk. At any time after the first year, they're able to drop in an email and remove themselves from the borrow shelf if they wish. We believe this initiative will allow our community to hear from external communities, which will enrich the experiences of our members and the external communities, give everybody ideas on research arenas, possible collaboration opportunities, and so on, and encourage persons and campuses to, of course, become members of NI in the future. With this, I have the absolute pleasure to introduce our very first guest to the podcast, the Woodstock School, which was founded in 1854. From the website, I found out its earliest days coincided with the dominance of the East India Company. Though the school was managed by Americans during the Raj, at times it provided refuge for families who opposed the British rule in India. Two world wars, an Indian independence, and partition, and the political upheavals of subsequent years can all be traced in the alumni and history of this amazing school. Deemed the oldest Asian international boarding school, this school showcases students from 30 nationalities and 40 languages. Oh my gosh, this conversation is going to be fun. So, we have with us today Dr. Bradford Banford, who is the Principal of the school. Welcome, Bradford. Kindly tell us a little bit about yourself and the guests that you have brought to the podcast with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to, and I'll also give them a chance to introduce themselves. I'm Bradford Barnhart. I'm the vice principal at Woodstock School, and I have the honor of being the staff advisor to our student-led Academic Honesty Council.
Tessel?
Hi, I'm Tessal Sangma. I teach middle school English. I was the former staff advisor to the Academic Honesty Council at Woodstock.
Nice to have you here. And Shivam?
Yeah, hello, I'm Shivam. So I'm a senior at Woodstock right now. Currently, I'm the president of the Academic Honesty Council, which, as Dr. Prad said, was a student-led body on academic integrity at Woodstock.
Fantastic. It's really exciting to have such a diverse group present in our very first podcast. So we've got a management representative, we've got a teacher, and we've got a student. So let's start by basically asking you guys about the kind of dynamics that you have in the school and what kind of motivated you guys to want to become a part of NI. Maybe Bradford?
Sure. Well, the dynamics of the school. So we're a school of upwards of 500, though I think we're probably around 480 right now. And we run a program primarily from grade 6 to grade 12. We do have a very small staff child-only early years program. But of course, our primary interest and primary focus when it comes to academic integrity is at the 6 to 12 range of ages and grade levels. And, we've had a student-led Academic Honesty Council here for years. I think Tessal will be better placed to tell you how many years exactly. I arrived in 2020, and it was going very strong under his leadership at that time. We invest a fair amount into the actions and processes of Academic Honesty Council work, from the policy and policy reviews at leadership level and student level, right on through to things like the election processes and our constitutional review and so forth. And so there's a fair amount of conversation that goes on, and we, among other things, we see students whenever there is a referral to us from a teacher who is concerned about evidence that the honor council has been, or the honor policy has been broken. So we go through a lot of these meetings together, and over the years, I think there has been a sort of a consciousness and a practice that's crystallized. And I think that we're feeling more and more kind of in tune with our place in the school and better recognized by the students and understood by the students. And I think, you know, coming to the ENAI question, one of the things that we've really tried to do is look at it from the other side, not the side or sides that are not purely disciplinary. Right? Because that's often the focus. It's, I cheat, I get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I inherit this great tradition from Mr. Tessal in his time. It may have been passed down from his predecessor as well, but there's a big emphasis on things like mentoring, and reflection. And I think, you know, in recent years, we, in fact, during the pandemic, sort of saw an opportunity to do a big camp in a virtual space, right? Because you don't have all the logistics of moving physically. So it actually was fairly straightforward. And so we got to start also on that front end educational piece, which is also very important. And I think so. Sorry,
before we go more into the details of the camp, maybe I want to take a step back and go to Tessal at this stage, because I think honors codes and systems like that, honor councils, are a very American concept. We've seen a lot of schools and universities in USA follow this model. Tessal, would you have an insight into why Woodstock chose to incorporate this, or how that came to be?
Like you said, it is a very American concept, and I think being an American school in India, this concept was brought into Woodstock as well. I can't say exactly when Honor Council started. It used to be called Honor Council, but we had to change it to try and help people from India relate to the organization a little bit more, because I think the concept of honor is a little bit different here in India, and that's the reason why we changed it to Academic Honesty Council instead of Honor Council. I think that was more straightforward. But I think it's coming from America again, drawing from that American legacy of Honor Council and focusing on academic integrity. And yeah. I think it is still an American concept, but it has been adopted.
I really like how you explained that you had to change the title, given the context of the school and where it is, and keeping to the, respecting the local understanding of the words, because that makes a huge difference, right? Particularly in the area that we're working in this space with academic integrity. So, Tessal, again, going back to you, because you were the predecessor to this before Bradford, what was the change like, what you saw? And then I will move to probably Bradford to ask about pre-COVID and during COVID and now. Tessal?
Yeah, some of the main changes that I noticed include, I would say, the name, first of all. I think it changed during my time when I was the advisor. Another thing that changed was moving from more consequence-driven council to more restorative, to more relational approach. I think my predecessors had that too, but I saw it more and more becoming relational, becoming restorative than it is, I think, consequential.
Oh.
I think those are the two main changes. Another change would be to the policy, where we had different levels of infringement. Instead of 4 levels, it changed to 3 levels now, because that made more sense, and that made more sense to the IB, because I think international baccalaureate recent adoption to some schools. So yeah, I think those were the main changes, I think.
Amazing. That's a great change. And I think that says a lot for how you guys are actually in keeping with the rest of the world. Because we've seen that shift as well everywhere, right? Like I'm in UAE, I've done some research here, I've been in contact with colleagues from other parts of the world, and we've all seen that shift happen. It's a very good shift, of course, moving away from a very punitive to an educative approach. So that's amazing to hear. The kind of keeping with the wave, as they say, that you are doing. So Bradford, coming to you, what are the kind of changes that you have seen in this space in your school pre-COVID, during COVID, and now that hopefully we are post-COVID?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that I wish I could say at this point we've seen a great reduction in the amount of academic dishonesty and that comes forward. I think if we were to go back and track our data very carefully,
yes,
we would see a reduction in that kind of, and we would see an increase in awareness around what we're looking for, in terms of academic integrity, both among staff and among students. I think that the big change that Tassal is referring to a more restorative and educative approach, really kind of, I inherited that. So that's carried on. I think that to some extent the workings of academic and the Academic Honesty Council were somewhat challenged during the pandemic. And there were some challenges that arose there in terms of holding hearings and how everything worked.
Right.
And so now we're getting back to the in-person again and sitting down with people one-on-one and talking to them. And I mean, everything is very nicely led by the students. In hearings, I typically sit back and don't say anything. And the president, in this case, Shivam, will lead off with some this material and lead right on through. So it's it's great. I think that probably the biggest change that we've had afoot is the increasing number of what we call research mentors in our community.
Right.
As of 2020 January, we had 0. Now we have 158 between grades 6 and 10. So that's almost 60% of all the students.
Right. Yeah.
And they have to earn that by passing certain assignments or tasks during research camp. So I would say that's a really big change.
That's really amazing. Now coming to Shivam, because Shivam, you're in 12th grade now, I understand, right? How long have you been in this particular school?
I've been at Woodstock for about 5 years, so this will be my 5th year.
Okay.
And yeah, as for the Academic Honesty Council, I've been in it for about 2 years and just assumed the role of president.
So, in your time here, how would you say that, your attitude, your attitude has changed or evolved from the way you have seen how the school approaches academic integrity and honesty?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that definitely came up by both Dr. Rad and Mr. Tassal was the punitive measures. So of course, our Academic Honesty Council has moved from more of a punitive side of things to restorative justice per se,
Right.
and focusing on students actually learning from the experience rather than just being reprimanded for them. And one thing that I've seen more on the student perspective is that student interest has grown quite a lot. Like many students, with the chat GPT and all of that, and GPT-3 coming up, many students are being more intrigued by academic honesty. They're trying to understand that, oh, how can they maintain the academic integrity while also using the tools at their service? So all of that stuff is really sort of woven into a community. So
Right. Amazing. So I'll come back to now Bradford and Tassal to explain to me about this research workshop that we've been referring to a little bit. I know this is a really exciting project that you guys launched about 3 years ago. And thank you so much, Bradford, for sharing the details of this workshop. So could you tell us a little bit about the motivation behind this workshop? Why did you guys want to do something like this, and a little bit about what it's all about?
Sure, I can just start that off. This really started in a meeting between myself, Tassal, our head librarian, and a couple of other staff members who just felt like, and I think Tassal being the academic the staff advisor to the Academic Honesty Council at the time, was feeling like there was just a lot. You know, he was seeing a lot of academic honesty referrals and having a lot of hearings, and the story, you start to piece together this pattern, this story of, well, I didn't know. And, you know, you can slide that aside and say, well, you should have known, right? But at a certain point, I think it starts to ring a little bit truer, depending on the students and the stories they tell and how it comes across. So I think it started coming across that we just needed to be a little bit more active on the front foot. I don't know, Tassal, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think when I was broaching this topic, I was coming from the idea that learning looks differently in different cultures. And we started getting many more students from India than before. When I first came, I think we had a lot less. I think it was like more 50% of 50% Indian students and 50% international students. We're getting more and more Indian students by the start of 2019, before the pandemic. So, and learning looks a little different in India than it does in international schools and outside of India, because in India, for the most part, learning means getting information from someone, receiving information from someone, and there is this knowledgeable person, a guru, that imparts knowledge and understanding. Um, and I think I was seeing that in my own classes as well. The shift, um, especially with Indian students, it could be, the transition could be quite rough for some of the students, because they were coming from that and they were not getting that direct, like, impartation of knowledge and skills, and they were supposed to start thinking on their own.
Yeah.
And I think that was why I thought it would be a good idea to, hey, let's start training these students to think independently, to think critically, and to be able to do that, they need to be honest, and they cannot just rely on this guru in a text and just copy whatever they're saying. They need to be able to tell us what they understand by what that guru said, or be able to argue with that guru in the book that they're reading, or any text for that matter. Yeah.
So I think that's a fascinating background, because you're right. Coming from a South Asian background, I know, for instance, we're constantly bombarded with this message that we should not be contesting the knowledgeable person. We should be accepting what's being told to us, and we should accept it on face value, because they're the ones who are imparting the knowledge. So this could be my parent, this could be my teacher, it could be my boss, for instance, right? So when you guys started this workshop, did you guys see a pushback from the students on the concepts, or was the transition into becoming part of this workshop easy? Maybe Tisol first.
Yes and no. I think to be very honest, many students saw it as like another thing to do. But I think from the teacher's point of view, like, we really want you to understand that this is important. It's important for you to be able to express your own opinions in an honest way.
Yeah.
And respecting other people's ideas at the same time. But I think many, if not all, students struggled with that idea of, like, oh, there's another thing to do at the start of the year.
Yeah.
I think there was that attitude, but I can see that changing, especially in, I would say, high school students or older middle school students. I think I'm starting to see that change in many of them. But yeah, that was my perception.
Okay, I will move to Shivam at this point. Shivam, you've been with the Honor Council, we shouldn't call it Honor Council, right? The Academic Honesty Council, for 2 years now. Were you a part of this research workshop prior to that?
Personally, I did take part in the research workshop when I was in grade 10. So that was
Okay.
mostly, yeah, I took part in it for a year, and then after that in DP2, I ended up hosting a session on academic integrity in the research camp. So I got to experience both ends of the things.
Amazing. So you are a product of the camp and you are the biggest champion then, right?
Fair
So
enough, yeah.
from your batch doing it when you guys were in grade 10 to now that when you are mentoring other students, what's the kind of change do you see in students in the sessions that you have, in their attitude, in the way they're responding?
So, I mean, of course, as Mr. Desal said, that when we did it, it honestly felt like a chore. It felt like something to do at the beginning of the year. Just like, yeah, you had to do it. It was just something that the school mandated us to do. But now, being on the other side, when I was hosting a session, the student engagement was honestly much more. It was much more interactive. I just felt that the students, like, they were starting to understand the value of research camp and sort of academic honesty as a whole. Personally, in my session, I felt that academic honesty sort of felt at a higher priority compared to previous years, and it was more of an opportunity to learn rather than just getting good grades and developing the opinions. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I like the way you've done that comparison at the beginning because I think the first time when you guys were the students, you only had teachers as facilitators, right? And now you guys are facilitators as well. So do you see that as the biggest catalyst to this change? Having
Yeah,
students as mentors?
yeah, definitely. I mean, we have 100+ research mentors, of course. So in
Wow.
some places where students aren't there, like academic honesty council members aren't there, the research mentors actually play a big role and they can sort of educate other classmates about the same. So that just creates a self-reinforcing system.
Amazing. So I'll come back to Bradford now because I know you guys will be presenting in more details, of course, in the NI conference that's happening later this year in July. But just coming back to the model that you guys have created or developed, could you tell us a little bit about this model and how the actual camp works?
Sure. It's got basically two parts. Part one is workshops where we cover basic skills. And part two is a research mini project. So we specifically engineer it to this research mini project to be very small, to be doable, certainly within an hour, but to require citation, referencing, paraphrasing, quotations. All those things have to be woven in. We have a rubric to help with that. And this is where the research mentors really come in guiding that process, because to become a research mentor, you've succeeded at this previously.
Of course. And I know the numbers are really looking amazing. So you had 42 students passing out from the first camp, and then you had an additional 60 students pass out from the second. And the third one, you have 158?
At the end of this past August, we had 158. Yeah.
Wow, that's great number. And given that you have a population of 500, 158 is quite a lot. So how does this work though? So let's say you're running it this year and you've got 500 students. Of that, 158, I'm guessing, are going to be the mentors. And the rest are all going to be participating? Or you have a selection process?
So we're an IB school, an International Baccalaureate School, which means that grades 6 through 10 are middle years program, MYP.
Right.
11 and 12 are DP, diploma program. The diploma program is handled a little bit separately. So our research camp actually focuses on 6 through 10.
Right.
This year in our 11 and 12 tend to be large groups. So maybe 70, 80 kids, 60, 70, something like that. So it's 100 something, right? So taking those out, we currently, and taking out early years as well, we currently have about 270 students, grades 6 through 10.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So as soon as you hit half that number with research mentors, then you have a one-to-one correspondence.
Yeah.
And that makes everything much, much easier. We did not quite have those numbers going into research camp in August 2022. So we still had teachers who were mentoring, which is perfectly fine. And as we move ahead, we're looking forward to having more and more of the just one-to-one correspondence between our mentors and our mentees.
That's really amazing. I mean, we talk about student champions, students being the voices, and students being in the forefront of this conversation. But I think on the ground, you guys are actually doing it, and you guys are achieving it at a very fantastic percentage rate. Coming to TESOL, maybe because you're the predecessor, how did you see this program evolve in terms of what you're teaching and what you decide, who decides to bring things in, and how does it get modified as you go forward?
So before I became the staff advisor to the AHC, mentorship looked a little bit different. It was more catered towards new students only. But the thing is, a lot of times, the referrals would be for students who are already at Woodstock as well. So I think that was a great move on the part of the school to train everyone in research skills, to train everyone in academic honesty. That's a great move. And I think that's the biggest change, like moving from just focusing on new students to
Right.
like everyone at school, because everyone needs that. Yeah, I think that was the biggest move.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
We are almost towards the end of our 30 minutes. I think this was a really exciting conversation to have, particularly, I mean, I think we've broken so many barriers, talking about academic integrity in schools, talking about an American school in India, then talking about a completely, a country in Southeast Asia versus the European Union's network, etc. So maybe just the last thoughts in terms of now being a part of this ENAI Human Library. Bradford, I'll come to you at this point. Where do you see yourselves as being the borrowed books? What's your hope for in the next year with any of our ENAI members or partners?
That's a great question. And I think there's loads of potential, and who knows what directions it'll take. But I think I think right now we might be the only K-12 school at ENAI, and I think it would be really fantastic for this to be an opportunity for other K-12 schools to sort of get a sense of what we're doing and connect. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. We've been talking about K-12, but we've not had a representation. So actually having a school in that conversation, I think, in fact, even the working group on the secondary school has taken on a very, very strong, different direction than what we had assumed, because again, we are not from K-12, right? Tisal, any last thoughts or comments?
Yeah, just building on what Brad said, I think it would be I'm really excited about Woodstock being a lead in this regard, to
Absolutely.
encourage other schools to also adopt this approach of mentoring students, or encouraging students to mentor other students in this line of academic honesty. And yeah, I'm looking forward to where this is going to go in the future. Yeah.
Amazing. Shivam, any last thoughts?
apart from what Dr. Pratt and Mr. Tal have already said, it's honestly an honor being part of the Academic Honesty Council and the Vodcast. And I mean, after I graduate, I hope that Woodstock integrates itself better into the ENAI. And yeah, I hope that academic honesty just grows as a passion in students. So.
Fantastic. With that, we come to the end of our very first Around the Globe in 30 podcast. We hope our audience gains insights into positive peer influence and student mentors and how that can be a source of tremendous inspiration to their peers. I take this opportunity, of course, to once again thank Woodstock School and their representatives, Dr. Bradford, Chesol, and Shivam, joining me, Zina Teresa Khan, in this conversation.